This episode is powered by DENmeditation.com, with locations in Los Angeles that normalize meditation and make it available to all. Though meditation is the primary focus, the bigger goal is for people to understand and love themselves, thus creating more harmony in the community at large. To find out more about Den Meditation's teacher training programs, retreats, and all things Den Meditation, go to DENmeditation.com. Hello, this is Tal, and welcome to DENtalks. I'm really excited. Today we have Jordana Brewster with us, who's an actress, which you may know her from the Emmy Award-winning show, American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, ABC's Secret and Lies, Fox's Lethal Weapon, or The Fast and the Furious. She's beautiful inside and out, and she is so raw here today. She actually really talks about the struggle she's had from anxiety and feeling isolated and how meditation has really helped her open up with that. But she's also really honest with the fact how motherhood actually made her take a step back and how she's struggling to really get back on to her spiritual path and make sure that she's teaching all of these things that she's learning every day to her children. Look, it's stressful being a mom. I can attest to that. And so this is a really lovely conversation about how anxiety can really make that a harder job than it has to be. So I hope you guys take a listen. And don't forget, at the end, she does a personal practice. She has a beautiful passage from Buddha that you are going to love. Welcome to DENtalks. I'm so excited to be here with Jordana Brewster today, who's an actress, and you've probably seen her in Fox's Lethal Weapon, ABC's Secret and Lies, Emmy Award-winning The People vs. O.J. Simpson, and The Fast and Furious. I'm so excited to chat with you today because just to have someone from my old world of Hollywood where we can talk about really what bringing meditation to it has changed for you and kind of navigating it. I can't wait, but I also want you guys to know she's also mama of 2 boys, a wife, and I really do love the fact that she's going to have a very practical point of view on why meditation or spirituality or changing your perspective can really help you day to day with stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
No, of course. I'm so glad to have you because I do feel like it is so important to just talk about everyday pressures and what we do about it. So I want to start when did you start meditating?
I started meditating about 8 years ago. So I've been meditating for a while. And before I had kids, I had a twice a day, 20 minutes on the seat, practice, which was amazing and kind of settled me. And it's the kind of meditation where you can do it anywhere. I'm often doing it in my car. So it's very, again, it's just practical because I tried the look at the flame and focus on your breath. And all of those meditations would give me so much anxiety.
Interesting.
That the only one that really worked was Vedic meditation, which is very similar to TM.
Yes. I try to explain that to people all the time. They're like, no, it's TM. I'm like, no, it's the idea of a mantra. I mean, I learned TM also, so I get it.
Yeah.
What turned you to it? Why did you seek it out? What made you want to even learn to meditate in the first place?
I felt like my anxiety was I have pretty bad anxiety. And when I was younger, it was a little bit of OCD, a little bit of social anxiety, just kind of feeling very in my head. And I overanalyze situations. And so it just got to the point where this was before meditation was trendy. And so I heard a couple of people talking about it and how it would just kind of give them space. And it just was a relief. And I met with this teacher, Amelie Grieven, who described it to me, and she kind of described it as just kind of a settling in that happens, and that was so appealing to me. And it was a 2 days of instructions, and I kind of my mantra was, they always call it this charming word that you just follow easily, and ease was what it was about because I've always tried so hard my whole life, tried
right,
hard
anxiety,
school,
don't make me more anxious.
Yeah, and it was just one thing where it was almost I love this analogy where someone's your mind is walking a dog all day, you're trying to you're watching your thoughts and you're controlling what you do and you're counting your steps or just
making sure it behaves
totally. And when you have kids,
picking up the poop,
that's even more amped up. So meditation to me is letting the dog off the leash for 20 minutes. And it's just
that's such a lovely way to say it. So being the fact that meditation was not kind of commonplace in that sense back then, how high was your anxiety to the point that's what you're I'm assuming at that point you've probably tried therapy, you probably, right?
Oh, and I love therapy.
Right.
And therapy, I've seen my therapist for the same one for we're going on like 15 years probably.
Ooh, it's like, that's a heavy duty relationship.
It is. At this point, she's almost like a life coach. She's like, Jordana, I just like, honestly, I don't mean to like upset you, but I'm going to be really honest right now. And I'm like, do it.
But those are the ones you want to work with.
Oh,
Because
totally.
I find like, I've struggled with therapy sometimes because I like, all of a sudden we're just having really interesting conversations, but I'm like, just tell me where I fucked up and how I can like fix it.
Yeah.
You want someone to just like call you on your shit
Totally.
sometimes.
And my therapist is a mom, and she just like, she helps me so much with my marriage. I've been married for like 11 years now. And I swear like I would be divorced if not for her.
I think most people would be divorced if they don't have someone kind of guiding them and I mean, relationships are hard.
Yeah.
Partnerships are hard, period. But so talk to me about what was it? Did you feel like that your anxiety was like, was it at an all-time high that all of a sudden you're looking for something new and different? Like, why were you reaching for something
It was at an
else?
all-time high. And I also felt like it was, I just was kind of secluding myself. Like, well, first it became physical. Like I remember one day being in the shower and just feeling this, like, it almost felt like a hand was coming up my neck and like grabbing the base of my skull. And like, that's how, because my shoulders were always like this. And I just was kind of always bracing myself for something. And so it was partially that, partially physical. And then also just the sense of like, not being open to the people around me, always like doubting, people's intentions and always thinking everyone, only my family was safe. And that's partially my upbringing and what my parents believe and how I
we're a little
was
bubble.
raised. Yeah, we're a little bubble. And, it's also part of being a Latin American family. Like we're Brazilian and this is our family of four is where
nobody
it's safe
fucks with
and
us.
no one ventures out. Yeah. So I had to sort of counter program that.
Now, were you always, so you were raised that way. So you were kind of always had that mindset. And I can only imagine like you entered Hollywood pretty early, like a young age.
I did. And
you did Fast and Furious at 18, was it?
I did Fast and Furious at 18 and I started working at 15.
Right. So that's, I mean, that's tough. That's like young. So especially if you have a mindset like that, and then you go into, as much as I love our industry and I'll still refer to it as ours, like it's not one that can always be trusted. And it's not one that gives you, let's say, the touchy feelies. Like it can be really gnarly. So talk about that. Did that escalate it? Do you think that was like compounding it for you?
I think I'm so lucky that I started when I did at 15 because I didn't know any better.
Oh, interesting.
I think now I overthink things way more than I used to. And I have the tendency of like looking at something that's relatively small and then making it so much bigger. Like there's a project that I kind of want to do. And I'm like, oh my God, if I don't do this project, that means I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm never going to work again. And my husband's going to be the breadwinner. Like I'll just like create
her agent's in the room and is laughing her ass off right now, just
like,
so people know.
I'll just create these like doomsday scenarios.
And all of a sudden your entire world revolves around the access of this small project. Like it has the ability to change everything.
1,000%.
Right.
And Liz, who I work with, who's also like,
your other therapist?
The same language. No, she 1,000% is. And she speaks the same language. She's always like, not everyone's on the same schedule and not everyone's interpreting it in the same way you are. But I do find that this business has a way of skewing things, which is why I think it's always so important to have something else, which is why I think earlier on it was so healthy for me because I had school. And so I was never basing my identity on one or the other. Right. Now I am more because I love the fact that I'm a working mom. So if I'm not working, like I don't really know. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I'm becoming a soccer mom, and I'm like, micromanaging my kids, and so I find it like the business could never be as tough on me as I am on myself, which is another reason I need meditation.
No, for sure. I mean, we talk a lot about identity and self-identity and the trick, and it's difficult. It sounds like you're in the middle of it, which is great because I can't wait to pick your brain about it, is always how do you self-identify with you, like the 10 layers deep or 100 layers deep, not the outside, because that's what happens. It's like when all of a sudden you don't have a job for a little bit, then you're like, who the fuck am I? Or if all of a sudden you're overworking, you're like, well, now I'm this person. And it's like, but that shit comes and goes. So who are you without it? Do you feel like that's kind of where you are now, like still figuring that out? Or do you feel like you have a better sense through like the years of meditation?
I think I had a better sense. I had a really good grasp on everything and I was feeling super calm. And then I became a mom and then I was like, whoa.
So interesting. That's so interesting. So let's back up before you became a mom, because that's actually interesting that it changes, because I get it. I went through the same thing. So you started meditating because of, you were just all-time high of stress and anxiety. Was there anything that triggered it, or no, it was just growing?
Nothing nothing. It was just, it's also like things not working anymore, being in therapy for years and overanalyzing things and questioning everything. Like after a while, it was like, you know what? I just need to not outsource my problems quite as much, which is something else that I love to do. But I kind of need to I always knew that I needed to center and it sounds so cliche, but find the answers within settle down.
And you say you always knew that, you always had that feeling?
That intuition's there. I feel because I have this sort of, this habit of asking everyone else, oh, what do you think
what
of
should
this?
I do?
And what do you think of this? And what should I do? And which is also a horrible habit to have as a mom, because I realize my boys are exposed to that. When I know the answer, because if someone's giving me something I don't want to hear, I'm always like, well, whatever. I know what the answer is. So it was just about settling in, and there's nothing better than knowing, because part of what Vedic meditation is also knowing that consciousness is everywhere and God is everywhere. And there was something so beautiful about that versus having grown up, Catholic and thinking, oh, I have to talk to a priest, or I have to confess, or God is up there, and
I have to act this way for God to love me.
Yeah. So it was just so comforting. For a little while, it gave me so much comfort. And that's kind of what I'm saying.
Did it happen quickly? Was that result fast for you?
It was so fast. It was insanely fast. And I remember one of the big markers for me was that I would go to work and I would always be very, again, in my head and to myself. And I just remember one day going to work after meditating for a couple of months and just being so calm and so open to everyone else's experience. And people all of a sudden started telling me more about themselves and sort of unloading on me in terms of their stories and their problems. And I had heard that happens to meditators a lot, because for some reason your energy invites that. And it just felt so much better to live that way.
Was that something you were craving? Were you aware that you were craving it before and kind of not know it? Were you
Yeah, I don't think I knew that I was craving connection in that way.
Did you just describe yourself I'm just an introvert and I like it? Kind of, did you just accept it?
Yeah, I just accepted it. And I think it was also kind of built in, because when I was at school, I was older than everyone else and I had been working. So I kind of secluded myself then. And then when I was at work, I was a student. So I always had this sort of weird identity where I wasn't fitting in entirely. But that's also a way of protecting yourself. You know what I mean?
And what do you feel so it's amazing. So you started having these beautiful personal connections. How do you feel it did help you with your anxiety and did shift
It did. Because you just don't take everything so personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think because in addition to meditation, I also go to knowledge meetings. I also study with Jeff Kober, who's out here in Studio City, and he's amazing. He's also an actor, but he's been meditating for many, many years. And he also talks about it on a very practical level. And when I don't go to these knowledge meetings, which is just meditators every Sunday, asking questions about meditation and then meditating together. When I don't do that, I listen to his recordings. But I went off on a tangent. Now I forgot.
No, you were talking about how it changed however else it helped you and how it brought your anxiety down.
Yeah, it's this idea of not taking every little thought or every little piece of anxiety, every little thing seriously, and realizing hey, there's just thoughts, they're going to come and go. It's okay. That's not.
Yeah.
So in a way,
isn't it amazing how that shifts your life? Just that it's such a simple idea that should, in theory, be not so difficult to grasp. It feels like if you write it on paper, that's a very simple thought, but it is one of the hardest things for people to get is you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. And it's amazing, what you're describing now, the minute it clicks, how it just shifts so much.
Yeah, it really does.
And so then, and I get this, excuse me, but so then you became a mom.
Yeah.
Or actually, but then did you meet your husband around then? Do you think that helped you meet your partner?
No, I actually started meditating.
You guys were already together?
And he'll often say babe, just go meditate, please. But he's a really calm guy. I'm really lucky.
It's interesting. That's what you were seeking out too. So it's nice.
For sure. So I started meditating probably, we've been married for 11 years. So 3 or 4 years into our marriage, I started meditating. And
Did he see the difference?
He did. Yeah. Again, it goes in waves, but he does. And
The fact that he threatens you, please go
I
meditate.
know, please go.
He clearly sees some sort of benefit. So then you became a mom. Now, look, I get this better than anything. I talk about it all the time. I became a mom and opened a business pretty much all at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
And so people used to always be like, oh my God, are you so zen? You must be so zen now. It must be so relaxing. You must meditate all the time. And I was, by the way, a shell of myself at that point. And I was always really honest about it. I'm like, my practice went to shit ironically, when we first opened, but it's almost like doing so much to make sure everybody else could have practice. Mine went to shit. And I always say, like, even if I just became a mom, I think it would have been really hard because you're giving so much especially in the beginning, you give so much of yourself that if you have any seconds to yourself, you usually just kind of need to breathe. Like it's like sleep, sit there, whatever it is. So I totally get how becoming a mom, weirdly, when you need it the most is when you kind of lose your way. So talk about that, because I know you've hinted at it a few times now.
Also, when you want to model the best behavior for your kids, it's like that's when you need meditation the most. But what I noticed is that so when I became a meditator, I also shifted from like realizing, again, it's about ease. It's about like synchronicity. Like all of a sudden, like coincidences would happen. And I'd be like, holy shit, this person's calling me. Like that means something. Or I would see things.
You'd actually see them and see their gifts.
But otherwise I'd be like too far up my own ass, like to see, because I'm like stuck in my head and my problems and But so the other thing that shuts off when you become a meditator a little bit more is that need to control and that need to plan and that need to, like all those like executive functioning skills,
Yeah.
But then when you become a mom, you need those again, because it's like, you need to figure out what school your kid's going to go to. You need to figure out their schedule. You need to figure out their nap time. You need to juggle so much, especially if you're working at the same time. So I felt like I kind of reverted back to like my type A controlling and like controlling what I can't control my kids. Like,
right.
Like
you can control their certain things, but you can't. It's letting go of the expectations with whatever you're putting out there, which I think is the key. Yeah.
Which is really hard. And especially when you take it so personally. Like Julian is
So how old are your kids?
My oldest. Julian's 5 and Rowan is 2.
So you're in it.
And in it.
You are in it.
Julian's basically me when I was younger. Like when I didn't have a girl, I thought, oh my God, amazing. Like I don't have to try to like hide my neurotic behavior. Like it's going to be fine. Like I don't have to pretend that I don't care about how I look. Like it's all good because I have a boy. So it's going to be easy.
Right. That's so interesting that like psychologically we feel like women are the only ones who take these things on.
But Julian is
taking it on.
He's taking it on. He's like very concerned about what he's wearing all the time. He wants to like look a certain way. He's very wary of situations. And he always says like, Mommy, I don't trust that person. And he never wants to try new things. And like, I've been given the advice of to try to point out the good things to your son, try to have more fun, try to be lighter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need to work on for myself. And now I need to do it for my kid. And therefore I will do it.
And do you feel like that has been your issue? Do you feel like you go a little bit to the negative even through them?
1,000%. Like those grooves are so like
deep.
Set in my brain that meditation helps a ton. And meditation helps a ton in terms of just trusting the universe and letting go. But I feel like if I don't have a practice that affirms that on a daily basis, I'll just revert back to like, okay, what can I control to make sure that the world doesn't end?
It's so interesting because we were just talking about this actually in here about how if with parenting, especially if there was the ability, and it's very difficult, of taking a more broad emotional consciousness stance to it, like understanding how you're teaching a child their emotional consciousness, there would be people would probably behave differently with their children or teach them different things. So like, for instance, one of the things I do, which now my husband, who can be pretty negative himself and was raised that way, laughs, but he now does it. Like my child's obsessed with flying, like obsessed, loves it. Like if I tell her we're getting on a plane, she like doesn't even want to go to sleep because she's like, are we going yet? Are we going yet? And part of it is because he hates traveling so much because it was ingrained in him. I'm like, that is not happening. From before she could even speak, anytime we traveled, I was always like, it's travel day, like so excited and just making it into like the best adventure. And now it's actually really funny to see because she's like, when are we going to the airport station? Are we going now? Can we go now? Are we going on the plane? Are we going up? Is it a big plane? I want a big plane. Like she's obsessed with it. And I know that's not just because she like was born. I know it's because I really made a point of being like, we're going to make her fucking love travel. Like, I don't want her to be the person because it stresses so many people out.
Yeah.
And travel sucks. We know that. Like if your plane gets delayed or you have to drag your bags and this and that. But I was like, I don't want it subconsciously getting in her brain that like going to the airport's a pain in the ass, standing on line sucks. If anything goes wrong, it's awful. Because then, like for me, I deal with a husband who I love dearly, but doesn't love to travel. And it takes me a lot to kind of get him there. So it is interesting what you're talking about, how we sometimes have to be even more conscious about trying to, like you said, get out of those grooves and try and give them a different way to react to things.
It just takes so much work.
So much work.
Then you're working on yourself and then you're also working on them. But that's beautiful that you were able to model that. And now it'll be different forever.
And I'm sure there'll be times where she'll hate it too. You like things happen. But in general, yes, it's really cute now that she loves it. She gets excited. Like I have to hold her back from running down the jetway. She like literally runs down. She's always like, is this our seat? Is this our seat? And I'm like, I'll show you which one. But it really was about just like what I told my husband that day was she doesn't know how to think yet. So I'm going to tell her how to think. And I'm going to tell her to think about this in a really positive way. And it's simple things like there were times, not to hijack this, but I remember when I would travel alone without, like when I would go away, I always, and I've talked to people about this, I would always phrase it to her like, Mama's got to go away for a few days to like work, but how exciting you get to play with Dada and you get to do this. And then I'm going to, like, I never once even said, now I'll say it when she's older, but when she was a baby, I never was like, oh, I'm going to miss you. I'm so sorry. I'm leaving. I never used those words. It was always like, you're going to have the best time. And then she was like excited about it. But how did you know
to do that?
I think part of it is, I'm a very positive person, but besides that,
yes.
But besides that, I do have a husband/partner who, again, I love, who struggles with it.
Yeah.
So I think I went into parenting trying to be really conscious of making sure we could do our best to mitigate it as much as possible. Look, life happens. People form their own opinions. People get negative. I mean, shit happens. But I was like, what can we do at the early stages to try and get her to really look at things as positive as possible? Because you see, there are things that are also innate. I'm sure some of this is also innate in him. You know what I mean? So like I see things with her too, where she'll go to a negative place. There's just things she was born with, fears or whatever it is. But I do my best to just try and like shift it and not give that the credence until she gives it to it for herself. I always say like, let her decide she doesn't like something.
Yeah.
I don't want to put in her head before she decides that. Does that make sense?
Yes,
it's like, let her decide she doesn't like those foods. I don't need to give her the example that I don't like them, because then of course she's not going to like them. Or let her decide one day that travel is not for her. But in the meantime, let me give her a clean slate of loving travel. And then if she doesn't like it, she doesn't like it. But that was kind of my philosophy. Like, let me give her a clean slate. And then as she gets older, let her form her own kind of like opinions on it.
Right.
But I was like, but I don't want to give her opinions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Totally. It's hard.
And so you kind of like fell off the wagon, let's say.
I didn't, well, I was given permission because I spoke to Jeff. And again, like even the
It's
language
hard.
I use
I
was
fell
like
off the
given
wagon.
permission by my meditation teacher. I talked to Jeff and I said, it's really hard for me to get both in because I also like to work out. So like if I get up at like 5:30.
I get it. I didn't get any in for like a good chunk of time. It was awful. I just stopped doing anything for myself, period.
Oh, that's really hard.
It was horrible. But I'm saying really, like, really I say this all without judgment is my point.
No,
it
totally,
just happens.
Totally. Yeah. I know. But I was able to do one until there's a little unsaid rule where you can do one, cut down to one meditation until they're like 2. But Rowan just turned 2 like 2 months ago. So I should really get back
hilarious.
to my regular
I love
practice.
that that's the unsaid rule.
But again, I find it really hard. Like 40 minutes a day for me is really hard. But then what I'll do is I'll kind of like cushion the like what I would usually get from meditation, which so if I get one at the end of the day, like that's beautiful for me. But then I'll do things to calm myself down throughout the day, like listen to podcasts or read something that's spiritual rather than just, checking Instagram constantly. Because I know what fuels like the bad, and then I know what fuels
So let's talk about it. What fuels the bad for you?
I think focusing on what I can't control, and that's where the business drives me nuts.
Right.
Like for someone who's such a control freak and so anal, like I picked the wrong business. It's like shocking to me, but
maybe you picked exactly the right business because it's your lesson.
Right. True. But fixating on, when something is going to happen or why, they're not calling back or why a show isn't going at a certain time, like all of those
uncontrollable,
uncontrollable, like crazy
It's like your
things.
nightmare.
Yeah. So focusing on that. Oh my gosh, like thank God they're now unavailable, but like message boards, like back in the day, I would like go on IMDb and I would read message boards and I would just torture myself.
No, I remember, and I was never an actress, but even on the executive side, like if there was ever anything written about me, I just wouldn't go to deadline like at all, unless like I would have someone read it. I'd be like, can I read it? Should I read it or not? Because I just refuse. Because it just people are so cruel.
And that stuff sticks. Like
of course.
Just sticks. So
I can't even imagine you get it 100-fold. So yeah.
So then Instagram can also be a little bit toxic in that you're just constantly comparing yourself. And like you always see where the parties, where you're not at the party or, who's doing what. And people are always showing their best selves. And then some people are brave enough to show like everything, but I'm not that brave. So it's like,
you're like, where do I fit in this?
Yeah. So I find that social media can be a little bit of a black hole.
Are you good at doing like detoxes, like social media detoxes? Are you good at putting it aside for a little bit?
In theory.
You try. It's hard.
I try. It's really hard because when I don't have it with me, I notice that my body just goes there.
We're so addicted.
It's sick. It's really bad.
We were just talking about it today, actually, about the detox. It really is an addiction. And you actually, if you're going to try and get off of it, you actually have to like do it for a chunk of time to actually reprogram.
Like how long do you think it takes?
To really do, anything that, what do people say? Habits are like 21 days, but I think at least like I know someone and I love this. They do it for 24 hours every week. And I think that's actually
good.
Doable. I think that's actually really doable. I think we could all do that. I think especially once people around you start to know, oh, this is the day they're not reachable. Yeah. A, they stop trying to reach you, or they at least stop having the expectation you're going to get back. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem is I think society's expectation and us feeling responsible for it. So at least as far as texting or getting in touch or emails, I think if people know that goes away, and then I think if you literally put your phone somewhere so you're not scrolling to oblivion for 24 hours, it's just helpful to have 24 hours of like clearing your brain, doing whatever it is you want to do in that time, whether it's self-care, spend time with the family, or read books. I
know I really miss reading books.
I miss reading books too. That's like, I'm just starting to get it back. And it was hard. That went out the window too. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, but then like, what are things we can do? This is what I always think about. What are the things we can do to try and get the things we miss back the most? Is it waking up a little bit earlier, which is hard when you have kids? Is it not watching TV one night and giving yourself that one night of reading instead? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's always like, how can we be practical about? And
I find that like, for example, if I want to work out, so I get up at 5:30 before the kids are up because then there's like zero guilt.
Right.
Or when my husband's away, for some reason, it's much easier for me to read. I find that like,
interesting.
Yeah, it's so much easier for me.
When do you read? Like, is it in the bed thing, like going to sleep?
Yeah, at night right before going to bed when the kids are already asleep.
So maybe that's why. Do you guys talk a lot like at night?
Or we just love watching TV together.
I know.
It's just our thing. It's
I know.
So relaxing.
And it's the biggest waste of time. And I love it too. And it's like, I always say, if I would actually stop watching half the shit I watch, I would get so much more done. I know, it's really hard though.
Yeah.
So you're in this place now of like trying to like re-up your practice back to where it was. Mm-hmm. But it still seems like you're very in touch with your practice, which is great. Like I always say the first thing is people have to be easy on themselves. Like the more pressure you put, you almost like undo the 20 minutes you're doing every day.
It's true.
You're doing 20 minutes. That's more than most people are doing every day or at all.
Right.
Which is impressive.
Yeah.
And you do find that it keeps you more balanced as a mom now.
Yeah. As a mom, and I also, it's something I talk about openly with the kids. I'm going to meditate, or with Julian, Julian's a little too smart for my game because I'll often say like, let's take a breath. And then he just starts making fun of me and he takes like 10 like really shallow breaths.
What are your biggest challenges with him? He sounds like he's the challenging one.
Again, my biggest challenge is that he's not afraid of anything. Like if I say, okay, I'm going to take away TV, he's like, I don't care. If I say I'm going to take away your Legos, I don't care. Like and he's also really smart. So he knows, how to like get to you. Like before I left today, and I've barely been working this summer, but he was like, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to go work. How long are you going to take? And it was just like this
gut-wrenching,
endless, like, and I was like, you need to get off the driveway because I am leaving. Like you need, like just, so he's just, And it's also really hard because he'll also hit me with like, I'm not sure if your daughter's gotten to this stage yet, but like the other day we were all driving and he was like, what's going to happen after I die?
How old is he? 4?
He's about to turn 5. He's like, I don't want there to be
That's
sand
heady.
in my eyes when I die. And I was like, oh my
Sand
God.
in my
And then my
eyes.
husband
You're
had
like,
the
I
worst
hope there's not.
response because my husband goes, no, you'll be in a box. And I go, dude.
Poor kids now sitting here thinking about what
Dude.
it's like to be. I did that, by the way.
I
When I
mean-
was little, I used to think about what it was like to have all darkness, like all
Me
the
too.
time.
I was so morbid.
It's
I was
trippy.
like, I wanted to be buried with someone, or I would like look at my
Because
hand.
it's a very lonely idea, especially as a child.
It really is. So, and then I told him I was like, no, we're going to have a Viking funeral and they're going to shoot arrows at us in a boat. And like, cause
You
he
made
loves,
it glorious.
he like
ceremonious.
romanticizes things, but he asks about like reincarnation. He'll be like, if I die, will I have the same mom? Will she be more beautiful? Like he'll ask things like, and I'm just like, are you 25?
But I feel like you got like the best son for you. It's like someone who really challenges you and keeps you on your spiritual game. Because it feels like it's something you've been craving for a really long time.
Yeah.
And you've been doing. And it's like now you have a kid who just keeps like forces you to stay in it.
Yeah.
For so many reasons.
It's true.
It's kind of beautiful.
It's true. Yeah.
Like that's really amazing.
Yeah.
He's like your own teacher for sure.
He is. For
He's your
sure.
number one teacher.
And it's something my therapist told me. That's something my therapist told me like before I had kids, and I wasn't getting that. I was like, I don't feel like really like I'm not really good at this. It's not coming naturally. And then like it's not until relatively recently that I'm like, oh my God. Like it's how like this is what she meant. Like he is my little spiritual teacher because I'm literally having to do all this work again because of him. And
But that's amazing.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Do you feel like doing the work and you say again, how do you feel like it shifted for you this time versus the first time?
I feel like the stakes are higher because again, I'll hang out with my mom and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I see like why I have certain things that I do. Like she did so much that was amazing, but then there's so many things that I'm worried about or scared of that I shouldn't be, but it's almost like genetic.
Do you feel like, so how was your childhood? Like you guys were clearly a tight little tribe.
Tight little tribe. Like
You were
idyllic. We
in
moved
Brazil? Is that what you said?
We moved from London to Brazil and then to New York.
Oh, wow. So you were all over.
Yeah, we were all over the place. But I mean, it even happens now. Like my mom doesn't throw parties or socialize. Like it's difficult for her to like just adapt and change course quickly. And so then I've tried to do the polar opposite and I try to entertain like every weekend. And I went from like barely being able to socialize with Andrew to now like being completely fine.
That's great.
Through a lot of work. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, did you get along with your parents growing up?
Yeah. And we're super close. Like
You're
we
still
all
all
we all
really
live in
tight.
LA and we see each other
Amazing.
like weekly.
But
Yeah.
what do you feel like was the struggle for you as a kid?
The struggle for me as a kid was, I mean, I think it was like by God's grace, like I had a career because it was something my mom did not condone, but I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And I just knew that I wanted to do it and I went for it. And I'm so grateful that I did. But it was always about having an identity outside of my family and not feeling guilty for having that identity. And it even happens now. Like if I don't include my parents in something or if I don't include my sister in something, I'm always like, oh my God, they're going to be mad at me.
Do you feel like you have to tiptoe sometimes and like hide the fact that you're like, can we just do a dinner without them?
Yeah. And that's what happens with like super close-knit families. I think it's like such a blessing and everyone's always like, oh my God, your parents are helping with your kids and and it's so nice. But it's also like,
do you think it was harder for you to, like you were just saying, find your own identity, just who you were? And it's like, because I know we touched on it a little bit, like still like, who am I below all these surfaces?
Yeah, I think so. Because you're constantly, deferring to someone else. And for me, it was hard. I think you internalize your mom's voice, or at least I did. And that's why I also feel so much pressure as a parent, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want Julian to internalize the wrong thing, or I don't want Rowan to internalize the wrong thing. Because I hear my mom's voice sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, that's my mom. That's not me, and I'm 38.
So
like,
she's
crazy.
She's high anxiety then too, clearly.
She's high anxiety. Yeah.
And so that's hard to be
She
raised.
wouldn't say she is, but she is.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
And that's hard though, as a kid. Do you feel like Do you remember certain things, like ways you would act, do you think, because of like having that anxiety around you all the time? Were you anxious even as a child?
Well, now I look back and like Julian has trouble falling asleep sometimes, and I'm trying to get him to like verbalize it in a better way, because sometimes he'll just scream and be rude to people. And I'm like, Boba, just tell me like it's too many people for you, or you need to take a break, or you want one-on-one time with mom. But I look back, and my husband says the same thing. Like I could not have sleepovers. Basically I couldn't have sleep. Like I went to college and I was still coming home every weekend.
Wow.
Like, yeah. I mean, that's a little nuts.
Did you ever go through a phase of being angry at her or no?
I think I went through a phase, because everyone says they rebel in their adolescence. I rebelled like in my 20s after school. I was like, I can't talk to you for a little while because I couldn't. It's like I need Alan on, basically. I couldn't talk without
it's a very codependent thing for sure.
Enmeshed, and like without like triggering a fight. And some stuff has surfaced as well with like having kids, because they parent differently. And I'm like, wait, step back. Like this is how we're doing it with Julian. And so it's the struggle.
Do you think actually having kids has in a weird way helped you set better boundaries with your mom and dad maybe?
Yeah. And with friends. Like if like you can mess with me, but if you mess with my kids, like you're like
I love it. Tired. Yeah. There it is. Wow.
Yeah. True.
What about now your mom was also like kind of in the industry, right? Was she like a supermodel?
She was a supermodel in Brazil.
So how the hell was that, being a child of a supermodel? I mean, that's a whole thing in of itself.
It is. I remember everyone just being like, oh my God, your mom's so beautiful. And I was like, she's not, she's my mom. Like I just didn't understand it. But I'm so grateful for it, because she taught me like the importance of eating well and the importance of taking care of yourself. But yes, there was there a lot of import on that? Like it's always tricky with kids, like that balance of like, I get nervous because I have a girl now. I'm like, because you really want to make sure that you're teaching them healthy ways of eating, but then at the same time, you don't want it to become all that they think about, because then inadvertently you're like teaching them not how to be. It's so tricky. It's tricky. And you also really can't go to the other extreme of like not exposing your kid to like, because I there's some people that don't expose their kid to any TV or any films or any
sugar, and then they binge.
Right. Actually, my mom was kind of like that. She was like, it was all organic, like
extreme.
No sugar, no. And
because that's probably how she was living at that point. Right.
And she eats extremely healthy, but she thinks sugar's like the devil. And so with the kids, she's often like, don't give them that. And, they're acting that way because they had sugar. And I'm like, oh my God, no, it's not. It's not.
Was it hard for you? Like, because that is hard. I remember my mom was a little bit like that. And I felt like I struggled, especially in high school, a little bit with like my relationship with food and what it meant. Like I had to figure it out for myself. And it can be really tough as a woman. Like it's because you're so desperately trying to be healthy, but like, what does healthy mean when you're a teenager and you're a kid? It's like when you're burning more calories than most people do. You know what I mean? I feel like you start putting limits on yourself that aren't exactly healthy, but just because in theory they're healthy. And I can imagine for you, that must have been really hard, because a supermodel lives by that so strictly usually.
She does, but she also has like, she was a supermodel in Brazil. So she doesn't have like crazy,
like she's a Brazilian supermodel.
It's not like
is it different?
Stick thin, body image.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So that is good. So it was more about like healthy and, you should have oats for breakfast. And like, what is this cereal? That's disgusting. That has like processed stuff in it. It's like that kind of,
And what was her relationship with like beauty, like, and teaching kids about beauty and like self? Do you know what I mean? Was there?
I remember,
because I always find that fascinating too.
There was so much like ritual involved in like if there was a party, like we would get ready for like hours and like put rollers in our hair and put makeup on and it was fun. But I always think of my mom as, it's really interesting that we're talking about this, because I think my mom cares more about appearance than I do, right? But then recently a behaviorist said like, because I said, I'm worried that Julian talks a lot about like, she's beautiful. He's not beautiful. Like I mentioned, like he'll work with like a karate teacher or whatever. He's like, well, is she beautiful? I'm like, dude, where are you getting these ideas?
You're 4, right?
So then I started watching myself, and I started to realize like, I'll say like if Andrew dresses Rowan, like he's completely mismatched and it's a mess. I'm like, that bugs me.
Right.
And I never thought of myself as like,
But it's ingrained in you. There was
It's in
something
me.
about how you portray yourself that was very much, even though it was fun and it was like, you guys had a good time doing it, it was still all about like.
And again, this industry as well, like reinforces that.
I know.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't
and he's
help
like always
anybody.
watching me get hair and makeup done in the kitchen, and like that's the norm.
Right.
So yeah.
That's so interesting. So has your mom noticed a change in you through meditation? Like does it at all affect her perception of like anxiety?
She does. And she's open. She's like, I tried to get her into therapy and she said no. Cause again, like
It's a different school of thought.
Very different. And I lost that battle, but I feel like actually acupuncture is the next thing I'm going to get her into, because I think acupuncture
Dying
also
to know
helps.
how it goes. Acupuncture is great.
Acupuncture is amazing.
It might be actually a really good step because at least it's a little self-care too, like just kind of relaxing.
Yeah.
So that might maybe get her there.
Totally.
And this is me. I want to do the for yous because I think you have some really interesting things to say. And I love that you really do seek, which is so important. Like you're just seeking answers and learning constantly, which I think is amazing. So I feel like you have some great things to say. So your favorite book?
My favorite book is right now I'm reading Pema Chodron's Start Where You Are. And that one's great because again, it's about being easier on yourself. And like,
which we could all do.
Yeah. And then the other one's the Michael Singer book, which the Untethered Soul, because again, it's all about like stopping to like not taking your thoughts. So, like you are not your thoughts, which for me, I was like, wait, what?
I'm not. And then that's what you can teach your son, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Inspirational teacher.
Pema Chodron and Jeff. I really love Jeff because he brings, he just brings so much humanity to it.
That's incredible. What about, do you journal or have any other daily practice? And I know you do meditate 20 minutes, but do you have a different practice on top of that?
I try as much as I can to do a list of gratitude. And I had 2 girlfriends on this texting chain, and every day we had like 5 things you were grateful for.
Oh, I love that because then you hold each other accountable.
Totally. And you also like, it's a nice way of cluing each other into like what you're doing. Because you say like, oh, JW got like an A on his test. And, it's a nice way of knowing.
Oh, that's great. So you actually physically write out your gratitude list and you have it with friends.
I do.
So it's like, does someone ever say, where is it? Like, do you guys hold each other accountable?
It's often me being like, guys, we're dropping the ball. Let's go.
But that's great.
Yeah.
What a gift you're giving them too, though. Because I find gratitude lists, even if it's just mental and like not physically on paper, are huge because I think it just reminds you like how much good is out there. So that's incredible.
And if you're stirring, I think to journal and to just get it all out is also really healthy.
Have you always journaled?
I used to as a kid, and then recently I started this writing class, which I love, and it's just about like it's just
purging.
Oh, it's just about purging, and it's so wonderful, and so that got me back into journaling.
That's awesome. What is the first thing you do when you wake up?
First thing I do when I wake up is, I just get up and run. But I also try to like when I'm present enough to, I just try to make a mental note of everything I'm grateful for.
So you're a runner. Is that one of your main forms of exercise?
It is.
Do you find, 'cause to me, I find running very meditative, actually. It's like one of the times I actually kind of disappear. And next thing I know, I'm like, I feel like I haven't thought of anything for like 10 minutes, which is crazy because I'm always thinking of something. Does that happen to you too?
It does. It helps a lot. And also sometimes I kind of mesh meditation with running. Like instead of watching, like some days I'll slip and I'll watch like the Kardashians at like, because it's early and I have to, or botched. But sometimes
I'm a big fan of all of that.
Like the other day I was listening to this guy Les Brown, and like he just like he it's almost like, I don't know if you ever listened to like Abraham Hicks and those, like if I listen to something like that while I'm running, my day is completely different.
It's when I listen to stuff like that when I'm running too. And it always surprises me. I thought at first it would like really weigh me down as far as a run, and it's been great. So that's so interesting. I love this conversation. I'm really appreciative of all your honesty because I think it's so, everybody in life especially is struggling. Like we're all exhausted. We're all beat up. We're all way too hard on ourselves. We all think we could be doing everything better. And I think especially the conversation around parenting on how much we do transfer to our children without even realizing it and starting to take a more conscious approach, I think is huge. Yeah. And so I really like appreciate everything you shared with us.
Thank you.
Now Jordana is going to do her personal practice, which is a passage from Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, which reminds her that she is not controlled by her thoughts.
This is one of the quotes that that Jeff Kober shared, because Jeff has this thing called it's like daily thoughts, and so I read them every morning, and he often starts with a quote and then sort of elaborates on that. So this is excerpted. Excerpted? This is an excerpt from that. Yes. The thought manifests as the word. The word manifests as the deed. The deed develops into habit, and habit hardens into character. So watch the thought and its ways with care, and let it spring from love, born out of concern for all beings. As the shadow follows the body, as we think, so we become.
DENtalks is produced by Michael Burke, Mike Burns, Reem Edon, Nicole Rappi, and music by Alex Fetter.